1946, the very first Yom Kippur after the war. They had just finished Kriyas HaTorah in a displaced person camp called Feldafink, which was a gathering of many of the broken shells, those who had survived the terrible catastrophe and were groping to put the shattered pieces of their lives back together. They just finished Kriyas HaTorah, and on that day, General Eisenhower, the supreme commander of the Allied forces, and later the 34th President of the United States, came to visit. A few days earlier, they had been told that General Eisenhower was going to visit their DP camp. And when the general would come, there would have to be a representative of the camp, someone to greet him, to give a speech. Maybe there would be a few speeches. And the representative would have to give over their message. Someone who could describe their feelings, to vent the storm inside their souls. And a dispute arose, who should be appointed for the task. The Shomrei Torah in the camp, the observant in the camp, they maintained that only the Klausenburger Rebbe, only the great Rebbe, someone, although he himself had lost his wife and 11 children, he was the one who went from one broken neshama to the next, breathing life into the embers to reignite the spark of Yahadus. They said, who could better represent us than the Klausenburger Rebbe? Who can better give over our feelings? Only the Rebbe, the father of all the orphans in the camp, only he can represent us. But the more progressive ones, the more enlightened ones, the ones who had forsaken Torah and mitzvahs, they said, no, not the Rebbe. We've long forgotten about that type of Judaism. We don't want to bring that back again. It's an embarrassment to us. We want to have someone who could speak to the general, a man of the present, a man of today, someone who we don't have to be ashamed of. And there was a big argument, and many of the people insisted, no, only the Rebbe. And they prevailed, but there was a compromise. The others insisted, okay, you can have the Rebbe speak, but there was going to be 3 conditions. The Rebbe could speak first, but number 1, he cannot mention the name of God. Number 2, he cannot give any musar, he can't give any rebuke. And number 3, he has to speak very briefly, because we'll be appointing our representative after him. We'll have one of our people speak, following the Rebbe. And so Eisenhower came. And they set up a big platform, a stage, and they sat him up at the table. And the Klausenburger Rebbe goes up to the podium to greet him. And just as he's going up, the Rebbe grabs a talus. He wraps himself in the talus, and he makes a bracha, Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvaysa b'tzivanu v'sateif b'tzitzis. So the Rebbe managed to mention the name of Hashem. He greeted the general. He thanked him. He said, General, we will forever be grateful to you for the part that you played in saving the lives of a people, the last remnant of a nation persecuted, hounded, murdered, totally innocent of any crime. We thank you for the part that you played, and we will forever be grateful. And then he turned to his brothers and sisters, to the Jewish people, and he began to encourage them. He said, my dear brothers and sisters, we must never forget that we are the Am Hashem. We must never forget we have a tachlis, we have a purpose in this world, to proclaim the greatness, to be Mekadesh Shem Shamayim. And if the Almighty saw fit to save our lives, and we survive, we have to realize, we have to understand there is a purpose, and we have a mission in this world. And as the Rebbe is speaking, he's literally tugging on the heartstrings of all these broken Jews. And the people began to cry. There were many said they hadn't cried the entire time that they were in the camps. The well springs of tears had long dried up. And the thousands of people who were listening were crying. Rivers of tears flowed through this assembly. Eisenhower was shaken to the core. He was visibly and profoundly moved. And all the others who had prepared speeches, they said, no, they can't speak. There's nothing left to say. There was nothing left to say. And Eisenhower turned to the Klausenburger Rebbe and he said, "Holy Rabbi, tell me, what can I do for you? What can I do for your people?" Klausenburger Rebbe looks at Eisenhower in the eye. Who knows what he's going to ask for? The Rebbe says, today is Yom Kippur. 4 days left till Sukkot. Please, General, can you bring us Arba Minim? Can you bring us the 4 species? Can you get us a lulav and esrog? That's all we ask for. That's all we need. Eisenhower could not believe his ears. And on that day, Eisenhower dispatched a plane to travel to Italy and to bring them the Daled Minim. Upon liberation, our revered grandfather of blessed memory, Rabbi Daniel Yaakov Glatstein, Zechatzak Levracha, who was a survivor of all the dark places of Dachau, of Auschwitz. He was a student of Rabbi Nachum Zemba, a Ben Bais of Rabbi Nachum Zemba. He had smicha before the war from Rabbi Shlomo David Kahana. He was educated, he knew English, and he was appointed by the American Army as the head of the religious department of the Joint Distribution Committee. And in that capacity, he was able to help the survivors. He imported for them Tashmishe Mitzvah, Tashmishe Kedusha. He printed the first Svarim for the survivors, the Lev David of the Chida, the Eved Shlema of the Vilna Gaon. But he also served as the translator for General Eisenhower when Eisenhower visited Feldafing on that fateful Yom Kippur. And he was also the Klausenburger Rebbe's translator to Eisenhower. And when Eisenhower shipped in those Daled Minim to the DP camp, those Daled Minim arrived at the desk of Harav Mordechai Leib Glatstein Zechatzak Levracha. He was the Shlucha D'Rachmana. He was the heavenly messenger to distribute the Daled Minim to hundreds and thousands of survivors that very first Sukkot after the war. We are proud to share that our grandfather was the one who received those Daled Minim from General Dwight Eisenhower and distributed those Daled Minim in the very first Sukkot after the war to the She'iras HaPleita. Moyadim L'Simcha, wishing everyone a Guten Yom Tov.